Donald Trump has once again shaken the global economic stage with a bold and controversial move. A sweeping set of tariffs designed to reshape the United States trade relationships, announcing what he calls a national emergency to address America's trade deficit. He has imposed a universal 10% tariff on all imported goods, with significantly higher rates targeting major economic rivals. China faces a staggering 34% tariff, the European Union is hit with a 20% increase, and Japan must now contend with a 24% tariff on its exports to the U.S. These measures, according to Trump, are necessary to strengthen domestic manufacturing, protect American workers, and reduce dependency on foreign goods. However, the rest of the world sees it differently. The reaction was swift and fierce. China immediately condemned the tariffs, calling them a blatant act of economic aggression and promising decisive countermeasures. The European Union warned of serious economic consequences, making it clear that they are preparing retaliatory tariffs of their own. Japan, a longtime ally of the U.S., expressed deep regret and is already seeking diplomatic exemptions. Meanwhile, Wall Street reacted with volatility as investors scrambled to assess the impact of a potential trade war on global markets. But why did Trump make this move now? His argument is rooted in the long-standing belief that the U.S. has been taken advantage of in trade deals, accumulating massive deficits while other countries reap the benefits. He claims that China, in particular, has engaged in unfair trade practices, including intellectual property theft and market manipulation. By imposing tariffs, Trump hopes to make imported goods more expensive, encouraging American consumers to buy domestically produced products. In theory, this would boost U.S. manufacturing and create jobs, but the reality may not be so simple. History has shown that tariffs often lead to retaliation, and this time is no different. China has already hinted at imposing its own tariffs on American goods, potentially targeting key industries like agriculture, technology, and automobiles. For years, China has been one of the largest buyers of American soybeans, and any disruption in this trade could severely hurt U.S. farmers. The tech industry is also vulnerable, as companies like Apple and Tesla rely on Chinese supply chains. A full-scale trade war with China could send shockwaves through global supply networks, increasing costs for businesses and consumers alike. Europe is also preparing to strike back. The EU has a long history of responding to U.S. trade measures, with precise counteractions. In the past, they have targeted American industries with political significance, such as bourbon from Kentucky and Harley-Davidson motorcycles from Wisconsin, both home to strong Trump supporters. This time, the retaliation could be even more severe, affecting everything from American aircraft manufacturers to agricultural exports. European leaders argue that these tariffs violate international trade agreements and are considering legal action through the World Trade Organization. For developing countries, the consequences could be even more devastating. Many emerging economies rely on exports to the U.S. as a crucial part of their economic growth. Countries like Thailand and Bangladesh now face tariffs as high as 36% and 37%, respectively. This could make their products significantly more expensive in the U.S. market, potentially leading to factory closures and widespread job losses. For these nations, the trade war isn't just an economic inconvenience, it's a direct threat to their financial stability. Russia, although not directly mentioned in Trump's tariff plan, could still be affected. As global trade shifts, energy, markets may be disrupted, impacting Russia's oil and gas exports. Additionally, if China strengthens its economic ties with Russia as a way to bypass U.S. tariffs, it could lead to new geopolitical alliances that reshape the global balance of power. This could further isolate the U.S. from major international trade networks, as countries increasingly seek alternatives to the American-dominated financial system. Back home, the American economy is walking a tightrope. While Trump argues that these tariffs will protect American industries, many economists warn that they could lead to higher prices for consumers. When companies face higher costs on imported goods, they often pass those costs on to customers. This could drive inflation higher, forcing the Federal Reserve to take action, possibly by raising interest rates, something that could slow down economic growth and even push the U.S. toward recession. Another major concern is unemployment. While tariffs may benefit some domestic industries, others will suffer. Businesses that rely on imported raw materials, such as steel and aluminum, could see their costs skyrocket, leading to layoffs and factory closures. The automotive industry, for example, is particularly vulnerable, as modern car manufacturing is heavily dependent on international supply chains. If production costs rise, companies may be forced to either raise prices or cut jobs. Furthermore, industries that rely on exports, such as agriculture and aerospace, may struggle to compete in a retaliatory tariff environment. One of the biggest risks of this tariff strategy is the potential for stagflation, a rare but dangerous combination of stagnant economic growth and rising inflation. Historically, stagflation has been extremely difficult to combat, as it limits the effectiveness of traditional economic policies. If the U.S. economy slows down while prices continue to rise, the Federal Reserve may find itself in a difficult position, struggling to balance inflation control with economic stimulation. Beyond the economic risks, these tariffs could have a significant impact on U.S. politics. Trump's decision has reignited debates over protectionism versus free trade. While his base may applaud the move as a necessary step toward America First economic policies, many Republican lawmakers, traditionally in favor of free markets, have voiced concerns. The upcoming elections could be heavily influenced by how these policies play out, as key swing states, many of which rely on manufacturing and agriculture, will feel the immediate effects of these tariffs. Despite these risks, Trump remains defiant. He insists that these tariffs are necessary to put America first and restore economic fairness. His supporters argue that previous trade policies have led to the outsourcing of American jobs and that a tougher stance on trade is long overdue. For them, this move represents a bold step toward economic independence. However, critics warn that this strategy could backfire, leading to economic isolation rather than strength. The world economy is more interconnected than ever before, and trade wars rarely end without collateral damage. If the U.S. pushes too hard, it may find itself facing not just retaliation from individual countries, but a coordinated global effort to counterbalance American economic power. In an increasingly multipolar world, such isolation could weaken America's influence rather than strengthen it. As the world braces for impact, the question remains, is this the beginning of a new era in global trade, or the first step toward economic chaos? With markets reacting, world leaders strategizing, and industries preparing for change, one thing is certain. Trump's tariffs have set the stage for a confrontation that could redefine international economics for years to come. Whether this move ultimately strengthens the U.S. economy or leads to unintended consequences remains to be seen, but its effects will undoubtedly shape the future of global trade and politics for decades.